Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya.
Bhagwan Shri Yogi Ramsuratkumar ki jai. Sarvam Shri Yogi Ramsuratkumar Arpanamastu. Our endless pranams, our grateful pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagwan for making this session of Nama Sankirtan possible once again. It is no small grace that we are able to gather, sit in the powerful shrine of the Bhagwan and do it for the sake of the COVID people, COVID patients. We have been getting glimpses of the glory of Bhagwan's Nama. Today, we have one more experience of a devotee girl who went through a very deep personal joy of the glory of the name. Now, way back in 1890s, we knew that the women were looked down upon and they were meant only for the household work. They were not allowed to study at all. It was Swami Vivekananda who felt very deeply for the illiterate women and started the movement by asking Sister Nivedita to start a school for the girls. Though of course it did not gain much momentum and it was going very, very slowly. In the 1900s in Tamil Nadu, particularly in places like Virudhunagar, we were still slaves to the British Raj, and there was absolutely nobody who cared for women's education. At the time, Sri Tiruvannamalai Nada from Virudhunagar, who felt the immense need for the education of women. So much so, he began to go from house to house, begging people to send their young children to school. But he was harassed, he was jeered, people mocked at him, threw stones at him until he began to bleed. And of course they threw cow dung at him. Some of those reactions. But Sri Tiruvannamalai Nada would not budge from his stand. He became more and more determined He even started a school in 1910 in Virudhunagar. In fact, he even got the award. He was known as Virudhunagar Bharati. Subramanya Bharati was one of the champions for the cause of emancipation of women, which included education of women. Now, despite all that mockery and harassment, Tiruvannamalai Nada, I believe he used to write on a paper, "Hail the education of women," and then he would paste it on his body and go around with little girl children. He gave all his property to the school that he started in 1910, gave only a house to his daughter who was blind. Despite his propaganda, despite his earnestness and sincerity and hard work and determination, people did not welcome it. They did not think it is progress. Is okay? Is okay? So you see, the next 3 generations of Sri Tiruvannamalai Nada, they were in utter abject poverty. They found it very difficult to meet both ends. So where was the question of educating women? They just could not do anything about it. Though the school was running well, seen 100 years now, it was in the 4th generation from Tiruvannamalai Nada. This Pavitra Lakshmi came. Somehow she was impressed with the ideas of her forefather, the great grandfather, and she was determined to pursue her studies, no matter what. Her mother, Srimati Valarmati, did much to encourage her daughter, and of course her father also. Now, till the 8th standard, she was only an ordinary, average student. But then she came to hear about this Coimbatore PSG college, which was very popular. And then she wanted a seat, she wanted to study in the college, which motivated her, that she began to take her studies seriously and started to work hard. So much so that in the 10th standard, the board examination, she got the first rank, and the government gave the award, the Outstanding Performance Award, and honored her. But it was still very difficult to keep up the first rank, but she struggled on with great determination. When she came to +2, the final year in the school, that is when Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar entered her life. She did not know who he was, what his history was, but just looking at his picture, she was greatly drawn to him, and she felt there was no one else for her except him. All through her life, such was her faith. She worked very hard. Now with the hard work, she also started to pray to Bhagwan, and she found out the efficacy of the name and the efficacy of prayer, the power of prayer. Bhagwan began to travel with her. The pilgrimage of life was going on, Bhagwan holding her hand. She somehow joined this PSG, College for Women in Coimbatore. Even she says, her mother Valamati says, even there, by some leela of Bhagwan, that she was able to get a seat. She played a leela. Of course, there's no time to go into the details of that. Enough to say that she started to study well, and the fourth year came. It was the final year in the college, and then the placement interviews began to take place. Multinational companies, very, very popular, number 1, number 2, the world level. They began to hunt for students, intelligent students, who could contribute to the progress of their companies. Now, Pavitra Lakshmi, by her determination, hard work and intelligence, had earned 9 out of 10 points, and so she was given the first place for interview. Every day morning, she would stand before the picture of Bhagwan. There was a calendar in her room, a calendar carrying the pictures of Bhagwan. And she would stand before Bhagwan with folded hands, pray to him, and then start the day. Strangely, every day when she stood before Bhagwan's picture, there was this fan running in her room, and because of the air, or what else, the papers of the calendar, they began to wave in the air, and they lifted up to show July 21st. She did not take it seriously. It was only the air responsible for that. She left it at that. And she returned after the interview with a sense of humiliation because she didn't get it. But then it was only the first day. There were other days. So she again, relentlessly, motivating herself. Next day morning, again she stood before Bhagwan, praying to him, and started. Again the same thing happened. The papers of the calendar would lift themselves up, revealing a particular page where it was the date July 21st. Okay, it was very natural, and the same thing should repeat itself. What was the significance? There was no significance. She would go in the morning, come back, only to come back in the evening, with her head hung. Once again, a sense of failure overtook her. You can imagine 20 days like this. Every day would start with her standing before Bhagwan's picture, chanting his Nama, praying to him, and then starting for the interview camp in the campus. And then as soon as she reached the chambers, there would be several rounds of interview, some 7 to 9 rounds. She would go through every one of them by a different company every day, but in the evening only to come back in vain. Again, the sense of failure would bring her misery. She was unable to get over it, and she was slowly getting into depression. She was absolutely miserable, understandably. She would ring up to her mother, Valarmati, and then cry her heart out. But her mother would pacify her, saying, "Chant the name, there's no other goal. Maybe Bhagwan has a different plan for you. You just wait and see. Don't be overcome by this failure. Continue to chant the name with faith." She would say, "Ma, what am I doing all the time except chanting his name? And yet every day, it's only failure and humiliation." 20 days passed like this in abject misery, and she was unable to do anything. It was July 21st, and every day, it repeated like a ritual. Her going and standing before Bhagwan's picture, and the calendars, papers would lift up to reveal this July 21st. And she would take it. She would not take it seriously. She thought it was very natural when the air was around. And that day was July 21st. And she still did not think it was any significance. Like those 20 days before, that day also she stood before Bhagwan's calendar with folded hands, chanted his name and prayed nicely. And it was about 7 o'clock she started from her hostel room. You see, that day there was something unusual about her. She had some kind of excitement. At the same time, she felt such self-pity for herself, and she did not take even a cup of water. She went there for the interview. That day, from 3 companies, 3 international companies, multinational companies had come for the interview. And there, one of them was McKinsey and Company. It held the first place among the companies. She attended the interview. The first round was over. As usual, she thought, okay, what's a big idea? I won't get it. This is not going to be any different from other days. She was completely resigned to her fate again. And there were 7 more rounds to go through. Sometimes she would feel the heart pounding because she was nervous. She was nervy and tensed up. Second round was over, and somehow she found herself alone in a place. She was not allowed to carry her laptop, and the cell phone she carried, she found to her dismay, there was no charge in it. Now she was completely isolated with her depression. But suddenly, that day, very strangely, all depression, all negativities left her. This is what she says. As she went through the round after round, and she was completely isolated, she could not even phone up to her mother to speak. And there was only Bhagwan and me. She thought, okay, Bhagwan, only you are with me, you and I. She even stopped chanting the name. She remembered Bhagwan's face, and she felt she was with him. A strange peace began to take over. There were no negativities absolutely. She kept saying, Bhagwan, Bhagwan, you please be with me. And there was no other thought. Now it was 9 o'clock in the night. The girl did not even think of water or food. The whole day she had starved without knowing. Her mind just wouldn't go into water or food. Now, she was waiting for her final round. Some 4 girls came towards her and they said, you know, we have been trying for this company for the past 3 years, but in vain. Somehow we could not get it at all. But we would like to help you. You see, these are the questions they generally ask, and these are the answers they expect. And then they started to teach her. They said, just listen to us and impress upon your heart. They will help you during the interview. Just imagine, out of nowhere, 4 people, 4 girls should walk in and say they've been trying for 3 years but not getting it. And then they came of their own accord to help her, volunteer help, by informing her about the questions and the answers. They briefed her very well, and then they left. She thought that was also another strange thing to happen. It was surely Bhagwan and His grace. Because whatever she learned from them were absolutely new to her. Now it was 11:30, the last round. The officer called her. He kept asking her many questions, question after question after question. And strangely again, all those questions were the questions those 4 girls came and taught her. So she knew the answers readily, and she shot back with the answers. And suddenly her mother's words came to her mind. When there is no one to help you, it is His Nama that would come running to your help. You will see the glory of the name. So as she was thinking about all these things, sitting before the officer, suddenly the officer smiled. A very engaging smile, because it must have been Bhagwan who inspired him, because the next question that he asked was, my dear Pavitra, did you eat anything? And that is when she remembered she had not had anything from morning, not even water. She shook her head, and then the officer said, my God, you didn't take even water from morning, but you look so fresh. How is it possible? And immediately he went around arranging food for her. And then he asked her, suppose I give you the job. I may be giving it to you in a place called Gurgaon, near Delhi. Will you be able to come to this place from your place in Tamil Nadu? Such a long distance. She thought of her mother and father. She knew that both would object to it, coming all the way. But she said yes. She thought, Bhagwan, who has been with me all through the day, making very strange things happen, is with me, so I don't have to worry about anything. So she said a very firm yes. 850 people were interviewed that day, and only 2 people got selected. And one of them was Pavitra Lakshmi. You see, this happened in 2014. She took B.Tech degree. In 2018, she finished. Now, we'll come back to this moment, a very tremendous moment for Pavitra. After all that she went through the past 20 days, it was July 21st, she knew that the calendar, Bhagwan was all the time hinting at her. This July 21st is the day I have fixed for you. And in number 1 multinational company. But she didn't get it. She was not so sensitive to read into these movements, but then now she thought of all that. And then the officer smiled once again. He called her, Pavitra, come here. This is the appointment order. Open and see. And he kept smiling. Again it looked very strange. It must have been the smile of Bhagwan. She opened and there were two miracles sitting inside. One was, the date of joining for her was December 1st, the Jayanti day of Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar. The other one was, instead of Gurgaon, as she said, they had given her Chennai as the place of work. You can imagine how overwhelmed she should have been. So we see here, when she came back to the room, she ran all the way, completely overwhelmed with joy, to her hostel room and switched on the light, and she saw Bhagwan's calendar, and the date was July 21st. Now she celebrated her moment of victory with tears. She burst out into tears of joy, and that was her moment of celebration. Now this reminds me of another story. I think I must have narrated some time back, I'm not sure. It's about the Parsi devotee. The Parsi devotee by name Anahita. She came to Bhagwan in 2000 or 1999, I think. And when she walked into Pradhan Mandir, that was the day chosen by Bhagwan to give darshan. He had come in the wheelchair and he was seated there on the dais. And one of the people who were called to the stage, to the dais, was Anahita, and she was so fortunate to get a fruit from his hand. After that, it was complete absorption in Bhagwan. She was so closely drawn to Bhagwan, she could think of nothing else. When she went back to Mumbai, to her college, all the time she would be thinking of only Bhagwan and the ashram. And then she started to pray, even as she started studying her MBA, that if she should get a job, it should be in Bangalore, some place near Tiruvannamalai, so that she could come to the ashram every weekend. Just imagine how Bhagwan influences people, inspires people, young minds. Very strange. And then after that, again, when she came to the placement interviews in her last year in the college, the same thing, something that happened to Pavitra Lakshmi, repeated for Anahita also. She attended many interviews, the placement interviews, and every time it was only a fail. And again she was overcome with the sense of failure, and all other girls were getting jobs, getting fixed in some job or the other, but nothing got fixed for her. And again she was feeling miserable. But one ray of hope was that among all those people who got their jobs fixed by those company interviews, none of them were given a job in Bangalore. So that was a great consolation for her. And suddenly, one night at 10 o'clock, she got a call from her college, and she was at home then, and the home was far away from the college. It was a call for interview at the campus of the college, and it was from Oracle. It was the second best company, IT company in the world. Now she was tempted to go and attend because it had an office in Bangalore. It still has. And but people would not believe her when she said she had an interview call. Anyway, she was not going to stop. Nobody could stop her. She ran to the college. And then it was about 10 o'clock. From 10 o'clock up to 3 a.m., one round of interview after the other went on and on. At 3 o'clock, the interviews were over, and 4 o'clock they gave the result out of, those people, this oracle, had come after attending the interviews, after taking interviews from 3 best colleges in Bombay. This was the 4th college they had come for interview. And among all those people they had interviewed, they could select only one, and that was Anahita, and the place of work was Bangalore. Just see how Bhagwan works miracles. When you pray for a specific thing, it may take time for Bhagwan to fulfill it. So in the meantime, you have to go through a testing period. It will be a period of continuous misery, depression, self-pity, all negativities. But if you have 100% faith in Bhagwan, these things don't matter at all. What matters is the final result, the final end. He would do it in his chosen time, but he would do it to perfection. So from this, you can imagine, of course, needless to say that Anahita was here in the Tiruvannamalai ashram every weekend. She would drive all the way, every weekend. So you see, from these examples we come to understand that after we put a prayer before Bhagwan, it would take some time. It may take even a long time, like our prayer here for the COVID. It might take a long, long time. It would be a testing period for us. And we may feel miserable. We may think that the Nama is not working. What is Bhagwan doing? He is keeping silent. Things are getting worse, this and that. But all this while, Bhagwan would be working towards a best end. We can be very, very sure. No single Nama goes waste. No prayer goes waste. No prayer goes unanswered. Now Bhagwan is here right in front of us. Let us offer our today's prayer. Bhagwan, we know how you work. After all that struggle for progress, finally we get what we want by your grace. Now we understand our duty is to keep singing your Nama for the sake of the COVID patients and submit our prayers constantly. And it's up to you to do when and how. We beg you 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000 times, Bhagwan, for your immediate divine intervention to free the humanity in general and Indians in particular from the present harassing situation, from the dreadful grip of this monster virus, and bring back normalcy in every aspect of life. Bhagwan, please root out the panic from the hearts of people and stop the spread of the disease immediately. Enter those medicines which could kill these viruses in its entirety. And Bhagwan, all these people who are waiting outside the hospitals, hoping for a room and proper treatment and oxygen, please reach out to them and bless them with whatever they need so that they will get well soon and come back home safely. And again, all those volunteers from all departments who labor so hard day and night against all the challenges at the very risk of their lives in order to save other lives, please give them protection and all-round welfare. And of course, we beg you for a boost to economy and above all, constant remembrance of your name, knowing that it is our duty to go on with your name, not stop in between, no matter how long it takes for the result. We know that every failure is a stepping stone to the final victory. And Bhagwan, please bless us with the attitude of gratitude, the attitude of being a good instrument in your hands, and a very grateful instrument at that, to go about our life as an offering to you. And Bhagwan, please give us that purification, that cleansing, so that we could see only your presence and your blessings in every happening of life. Jai Yogi Ramsuratkumar.
Yogi Ramsuratkumar